everybody.
Morning. Wow, big room.
So this is going to be a real treat for us. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So Sarah, you've got quite a career in technology and the investment world as well. But now you're the CFO of arguably the most important technology company in the world. What in the world are you doing at an education conference? And what role do you see OpenAI playing in this ecosystem?
Sure. Well, I'm actually at the most important conference. Literally.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah. The most important. Because you are all both shaping the future and hopefully shaping the future alongside new technology like AI. So I can't think of a better room, frankly, to be having a conversation with. Unfortunately, I can't take in all your feedback, but we appreciate your feedback. So keep it coming in through any channel that you can. But you really are shaping the future, whether it's our youngest starting their journey in education. But a point I was trying to make last night, that education is not something we should think about finishing in our 20s, if we're lucky enough that we got to tertiary education. But today, the world is changing so fast that we need to think about education almost in every decade of our lives as a continuous journey. So thank you all for your interest and your time here today.
So Sarah, you were a software analyst at Goldman Sachs. You were the head of finance and strategy at Square. And then you're the CEO of Nextdoor, which is a very cool social media business. But what lured you to come to OpenAI, and what was sort of the, you've had some pretty important roles, but here you are. So what brought you here?
Yeah, this one was a hard one to turn down because you're right at the crucible of what's happening in the world today, and who doesn't want to take that seat to be at the table? So that was number one. I'm super curious by nature. It's kind of been a core. My husband might say it's my fatal flaw, but I would say it's a key character trait, the curiosity gene. I've always been fascinated by technology, but I also felt it was important to have diversity around the table when these decisions are being made about technology that's going to shape our futures. And so I wanted to be a part of that. Also felt, look, AI today, where are we? We began, people have been talking about AI for decades and decades. This journey has been a long one. But if you look back to November of 22, when ChatGPT kind of burst on the scene, it was this moment where I think consumers really recognized, I kind of could see what maybe this is. Now at the time, ChatGPT 3.0, maybe 3.5, was a lot like talking more to a grade schooler, maybe even just a primary school kid, frankly. Today, ChatGPT 4.5 is like talking to a very sophisticated PhD student in physics, math, chemistry, biology, superb at creative writing, amazing coder, the 175th best competitive coder in the world. My team assures me that the O series, our reasoning series, is now the best competitive coder in the world. So it's just incredible how fast this technology has happened, and that speed is just accelerating. So I wanted to be able to come to get that front row seat, to be able to shape the journey, but also to work with folks like all of you to tell some of the story and bring everybody along on this journey, because it is going to be an amplifier and an augmenter when used well, and that comes back to why education is so important right now.
So, how many of you are on the Nextdoor community?
That is awesome to see.
If I had more time, I'd tell you a great Nextdoor story, but we don't. But at Nextdoor, the focus on how kind of community and human connection, how is that experience influencing you, how you think about OpenAI and what you can create there?
Yeah. So, to me, community has been really important throughout my life. I'll take a little sidebar. I grew up in Northern Ireland. I grew up during the Troubles. It's a pretty tough time. Frankly, education and community were kind of two really important paths. I'll go to community first. My mom was the local nurse. My dad was the personnel manager of the local mill. And they were community. Like, they were kind of next door before next door could be a thing, because the internet didn't exist. Because every night, someone would knock on our back door, and it would be either someone in need of medical help, because my mom was the local nurse, so if you were having a baby, you probably weren't knocking on the door, but probably someone was coming to tell my mom, who was the midwife, the baby was on the way. But any sort of medical emergency, she was your port of call first. Or if you needed a job, if you had money problems, if you just needed a word of advice, my dad was the man to talk to. And so I really saw how the importance of community, even in kind of the toughest times, right? We had a community kind of riven by religious differences. If I take that to education, what did that mean for me growing up in that little community? Education was everything. It was the way to satisfy the curiosity gene. It was the place that was shelter. Going to like the local library was a moment of reprise often when, times were tough, like bombs went off in our village and stuff. It's madness. But it was also, I hate to put it this way, a way out from a very poor community. And so when I found my way out through education, it's always made me want to give back. And so when I think about what I learned at Nextdoor, that kind of power of community when it's done well, and by the way, when it's not done well, it is the most frustrating thing on the planet. As many of you know, I'm sure you both love and sometimes don't love your neighbors. It makes me think a lot about how do we bring together this human plus agentic world to think about it more as a force multiplier together, rather than a world where we fear something about AI, right? It's going to take over the world or whatever. But instead, how do we think about the AI native generations that are now kind of growing up, and how are they going to use this technology for good in the world, whether it's medical breakthroughs, new drug discoveries. I mean, it's wild what's happening already. Whether it's areas like education, right? The thing that we can do with technology today is deeply personalize it. So the dream that we've all had about every single child having a tutor that works exactly for them, it's actually here today. We don't have it widely distributed in the world, but the future is here right now. This is a thing. However you learn, if you're a verbal learner, if you're a visual learner, if you prefer auditory, right, you can have that. I watched my own kids using ChatGPT from, my daughter's in college, so she was a little afraid for the longest time that it was going to be cheating. And now when she talks to me about, getting stuck on a PSET, she's a chemistry major, and just being really fast able to ask ChatGPT, how would she approach a problem, or how would they solve this problem? She's like, Mom, it's not cheating, because I still have to go sit midterms and finals, so I still need to know the stuff. But instead of waiting until Monday morning or whenever my TA is available or my professor is available, I can keep going so I stay in my flow. And sometimes I ask it to explain it to me like I'm a middle schooler, and then to explain it to me like I'm a high schooler, and now explain it to me like I'm a sophomore. And she's like, just watching it explain the same concept, but over kind of over a course. She's like, that's the light bulb moment. And she's like, sometimes ChatGPT explains things different from my TA, but in a way that actually works better for me. So it's a long way to say, I think learning about community, really believing in the importance of community, but now thinking about how we bring technology and community together, it's really important to me. It's kind of what brought me to OpenAI.
That's awesome. My favorite feature is I always ask it to explain to me like I'm a 6-year-old. It's perfect for me, but it works really well.
In finance, one of my pet peeves is if any man says to you, let's talk about finance. I know immediately I'm not going to understand anything they say because they're going to use every three-letter acronym on the planet. And now I just sit there with my ChatGPT and I'm like, oh, okay, let's really get into that. And so it's wonderful as a great leveler.
But again, I think what is totally, speeding up the feedback loop, we talked about it last night, is this compression of time. So you don't have to wait till the next day or next week to get unstuck from an issue. You got that help right now when you need it.
Yeah.
So put your analyst hat on for a second. And you're a great research analyst. So what are the maybe 3 trends for AI that you see happening in the next 12 months that are most important?
Yeah, so I started talking a little bit about where we've been. So ChatGPT breaks on the scene, and we get this first look at GPT models. So really fast call and response. What really was, at that point in time, the research was showing is the more compute, with more data, with a smart algorithm, you were on a scaling law that just meant more intelligence. And that scaling law still holds. So that continues. However, last year, so that was only really 2023, which is bonkers. Last year, 2024, our researchers really discovered this idea of reasoning models. So we call them our O series of models. So this moves from system 1 to system 2 type thinking. And so now what you see the model able to do is it effectively thinks much more the way we do as humans. So my example is always if it was doing a crossword puzzle, right, the way we would, it would be one across, 5 letters, probably 3 words I think it could be. So I'm going to write in with a pencil the first idea. And then I'm going to go to 1 down. Oh, I know what that is. And it starts with an A. So that means that 1 across now has a second letter that's an A. So my first guess is incorrect. So I need to go erase and go back and re-look at that. So that's what the reasoning model is doing. It's actually able to double back on itself when it hits a cul-de-sac and says, oh, that's not going to get me to the right answer. So last year was all about reasoning. This year is all about agents. So you needed that reasoning capability to now be able to have an agent that can go out there and do something on your behalf. And so really we're just starting to see the play out of just task workers in the world. Each one of you can have someone kind of working for you in the back end while you're going about your day. Because that agent opens up a browser, and anything that has a website, it can go do that job for you. It might be booking a restaurant, it might be booking travel, it might be filling in an insurance form. Like whatever you would normally do on a website, Operator, which is our agent, can do for you. The next agent is deep research, and I think this is mind-blowing. It is literally the best product I have ever experienced in my professional career. Now, I was a research analyst, so I'm a biased sample. But the idea that I kind of said I have the curiosity bug. You all in this room must have the curiosity bug, otherwise you wouldn't do the jobs you do. But just to be able to send an analyst off to go whatever it is, like how could I think creatively about GPU financing? These are the sort of interesting deep research projects I do. But my sister-in-law is about to take a sabbatical, and she was like, I wanted to do deep research on what sabbatical I could do for, a 3-month travel. And off it goes. And you can use it today in Plus and Pro, and very soon we're going to bring it to our free base. And it effectively usually takes 15-ish minutes. It'll go look at maybe 30, 40 sources, something that would take you hours, maybe weeks to do. And you can treat it like an employee, like an analyst. So if you're creating a lesson plan, or you're thinking about, like, how would I curve my students, like, whatever is top of mind for you as an educator, it can go off and do a lot of that for you in the back end while you're doing what you do. Maybe it's just teaching, like in a classroom. So that's the second agentic technology. The third that we're spending a lot of time is agentic software development. And it's that we're not quite ready to release into the world. Today, there's already an augmentation of software developers, but we're really thinking about how do we create a new, like almost like a newly minted software engineer out of an MIT or Stanford or ASU or Georgia Tech, wherever you are, or globally. But the world of agents is right here with us now. And so then where does that take us, which is maybe next year, maybe it's more like 24 months out. I think we are going to start to see, and we may already be seeing, novel scientific discoveries. Theorems that have never been proven by a human yet, being proven by an agent. This is not the world of kind of sci-fi. We have heard from a number of, really the best and the brightest right on the edge of frontier research say, I think it might have discovered something novel, but I actually don't know because I need to go away now and prove that the thing that deep research brought me or the model brought me is new and is right. And so I think we are actually shifting into that world already. So for all of you, kind of particularly in the university setting, where you have graduates, PhD levels, and so on, I think they're now pushing that border of science. I mean, there's a reason why the national labs in the United States use our models from OpenAI deeply firewalled, but are using it for frontier research right now.
So from the seat that you have, how fast is AI changing the global economy?
Yeah, it's AI itself is moving so fast. So we have just, if you look at ChatGPT 3 to ChatGPT 4, that was about 2-ish years of model development. Our O series, our reasoning model, O1 to O3, took about 3 months. And so just the pace of change is unbelievable. And it's being fueled by the pace of the effectively Moore's law on steroids that's happening with AI infrastructure. So I was talking last night to a group saying on our APIs that many of you use in your university and education settings, the cost of our 4.0 model, which is kind of our workhorse API, down to our fully distilled 4.0 mini model, the cost curve came down 99% in about 12 months. I have never seen anything like that. I can't even almost even understand a cost curve that comes down by 99%. So what that means is, Jevons paradox, kind of the most overused term in my circles these days, that the more that is available, the more people are going to be using it. And so that speed is what you all are contending with. Now, what's happening in the actual economy? It is, we see some sectors, some companies, even some countries move very, very fast. Right? I'll stay kind of in education for right now, but ASU, right where we are, 181,000 seats of ChatGPT deployed wall to wall throughout the university for students, for educators, for researchers. Cal State University's just deployed 500,000 seats across all of their entities. We just launched something called NextGen, which is really more about research, but that's trying to bring in more universities around the world. Like my alma mater, Oxford, joined that grouping and is actually now pulling, I love this, data out of the Bodleian Library to be digitized and used in model development. So they have dissertations from, I think, 1498. I'm dying to know what dissertation people were doing in 1498.
I wasn't there. Just to be clear.
These days, I feel like I might have been there.
Yeah.
I might have been writing it. Yeah. And then the government of Estonia just did a deployment across all secondary school pupils in the country. Yeah. And so what we are seeing is that you asked about the impact on productivity. We are definitely now starting to see these kind of shifts ahead. And companies that are early adopters are starting to kind of create, I think, real competitive advantage. I'll give you one more for-profit example, but I like it because it talks to multimodal. So Grab, which is a really big company in Southeast Asia, right? They are kind of the delivery if you order food. Grab is an amazing super app. They use our model to grab, pardon the pun, visual data. So they have these moped drivers all over Southeast Asian cities, about 12 million gig workers. They capture more metadata on video than even Google Maps does in a year in those same cities. And what they're doing is creating their own map. And it's not just a map of like how to get from A to a customer. It's a map that shows when is the lanes going to go from 3 to 2. So if I'm on my moped, I need to be safe. When is there going to be a traffic speed camera? When is there going to be a traffic light? And when I get to that customer site, where's the moped parking? Because the faster I can go park and run upstairs to deliver my food, the better the food experience is for the customer. They got it faster, it was probably warmer. The better the experience is for the gig worker because they didn't have to cycle around the block looking for parking. The more deliveries they can make per hour, which is great for Grab's gross margin. And overall, you just have this very virtuous cycle happening in this for-profit company. And so I gave you a lot of education examples, and I think it's driving new education outcomes. But I think in the for-profit sectors, we're already starting to see really big impacts into corporate outcomes too.
So Sarah, we're running out of time, but I got 2 questions I got to ask you before we get off stage. First of all, and tie this in, so Stargate, gigantic, incredibly ambitious project. Just touch on what that is. And what if we started to treat education as a priority? What does that unlock?
Yeah. Stargate's super fast. For this audience, like the punchline you need to know is we need to build more AI infrastructure, particularly here in the United States, but just broad-based, to make sure that, as I said, those scaling laws stay intact, so that if it's pre-training, post-training, or test times while you're using the product, that we're continuing to build more intelligence. And so we announced with President Trump a $500 billion investment into AI data centers. The first $100 billion will get us our first 2 gigawatts, which in some ways I think we're going to look back on and feel like that was small. The full $500 billion will get us 10 gigawatts. And for comparison, Ireland, so kind of I'm sometimes Irish, sometimes British, Northern Ireland, I can play it both ways.
I thought you were Texan, go ahead.
Uses about 7 gigawatts of power per year. So we're talking about more power than a country. Now that brings a lot of other things to the fore, like how do we think about climate change and the impact from all this power usage. And again, this is where I think AI is going to be a big part of helping us solve some of these problems, like really investing in areas like nuclear fission, for example. And then, for this audience, your second question was, what if we really invested in education? We are really investing in education. Those billions of dollars I just talked about, they are creating tools that you all can use today. And if you're not using ChatGPT, and again, I'm not up here to, well, I am a little up here to sell my own product because I do care that my company is successful, so I don't want to be disingenuous, but it's more like use the tools of AI. Because what I find is whether it's very small things in my life, from a fast way to reply to an email. I have a custom GPT that I've trained that talks like me, which I realize is a scary thought, but it uses podcasts I've been on or speaking remarks that my comms team has created for me. And so when I give it an email to reply to or a Slack message to reply to, it replies like I do. And just saving those couple of minutes, but it's actually just the too many decisions in one day wears you out. Just saving that time, I find, leaves me a lot fresher for the hard intellectual stuff, but the stuff I really enjoy. And I would think in all your jobs, there's the stuff you really, really enjoy, which you should keep doing. And then there's the stuff you actually hate, like all of the bureaucracy, all the forms you fill in, all that stuff, where it can really speed you up. It's true in education, it's true in medicine, it's true in research, on and on. So I hope that when you leave after a summit like this, you feel excited, you feel inspired, you give it a go, and you talk to the people around you, because the best learning I've always found at a summit like this is listening to my peers and then taking those ideas home and getting everybody else excited when I get back to the ranch.
I got to ask you one more question. We've got over 1,000 ed tech entrepreneurs here. OpenAI, is it open for business? How can they interact with you?
Yes, we are very, very much open for business. So first of all, we do a lot to welcome in the entrepreneurs and the creators. Of course, there's our API that is available to all, and we're trying to make sure we keep pricing that API closer and closer to just cost so that you all get maximum access. I should have said our mission is AGI for the benefit of all of humanity. You are our force multipliers, because no company on earth can do it all. You only do it with your community, and this is our community. And so please, if you're not able to find it through hitting just openai.com and making your way to the developer of the API world, there's lots of places you can inbound if you have questions for us or want to partner with us. But we definitely welcome this ecosystem. You understand the deep domain expertise, you have the relationships, you have the credibility, and we want to bring that technology behind you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.